all you lifters, lunkers, and dreamers out there trying to figure out how to keep gaining while sheltering and quarantining. I'm Tex Dozier. I'm not some fancy influencer or some sponsored athlete trying to pitch you on a discount code for the latest and greatest gimmick, toy, or supplement. I'm just an average Joe who likes to lift heavy sometimes and run far sometimes. Got a combined power lift trio of over 1,000 pounds, and I've ran a few ultra marathons. I've been like you, wanting to get back into the gym, but also wanting to protect my health and respect public safety. And so I want to go over a few upper body exercises that you can do with just a single pair of dumbbells. Some are lifts you know, some are variations of the ones you know, and some you've probably never tried. Maybe your shelter rules get extended. Maybe we have to do this dance again in a few months. So here we are, sequestered in my dungeon basement of gains. I got recently a set of dumbbells and a bench. And so I'm going to utilize them, but mainly staying within a 15 to 40 pound range on these lifts. And most of the lifts you're going to see, you could rely just on a 15 pound pair of dumbbells or a 25 pound pair of dumbbells. And whether you have a 50 pound and a 30 pound combination, or a 15 and a 25, or just one pair, or just the pink ones from Target, still grow muscle in a variety of ways with a single lift. Reminder, concentric motion of a muscle for muscle growth is when the muscle is shortening, when you're doing the actual lift. Eccentric is when the muscle is lengthening. When you're offloading that weight is typically when that's occurring. And then there's isometric, where the muscle is under tension with a static hold, with no lengthening or shortening of the muscle at all. Concentric, eccentric, iso. Those are important, as I'm going to show you a variety of ways with often a single lift during this video of how you can shock the muscle with concentric and eccentric. Often we feel like we've reached failure with the concentric motion. And we really do not appreciate that we still have some gas in us. We still have a little more we can push out with the eccentric motion. Okay, and we're off. Basic gym bro doing the basic dumbbell curl. You can do variations on this with zone focus on the upper half of the curl as well as the bottom half. You can also iso hold one of the arms while doing dynamic concentric and eccentric motion with the alternative arm, as you see here, as well as alternating each. With a reminder, the bicep is divided in two heads. The short head, which is closer to the chest, all about the width, and the long head, which is on the outer portion connected to the shoulder, all about the peak. What you see is what you get when looking in a mirror and training and trying to focus on each head. So here we have a supinated crossbody curl, my personal favorite. And it's all about training that long head. And you see me here using an arm blaster. This is to help prevent the shoulder from taking over too much of the lift and helping me cheat. You don't have to use one of these. This is just one of the steps I take in addition to emphasizing that supinated wrist to prevent the shoulder and the forearm from helping my bicep cheat the lift. So be mindful also of that wrist flexion I have, in that I've had my wrist turned back so I'm not curling with my forearm. This may be somewhat uncomfortable if you have been moving your wrist forward and curling it, but definitely start trying it out and go lightweight to get the movement down correct. Here we have an incline curl, which is great to mix things up. Allows you to overload at the beginning range of the motion, and it stresses the long head of the bicep more because of the arm position behind the back side of the body. Whenever doing the incline curl, be sure to go to full extension at the bottom so you're actively firing that tricep and giving a greater stretch and contraction to the bicep at the bottom position. As mentioned earlier, don't forget about going to failure eccentrically as well as concentrically. Once at failure, you can use gravity to your advantage. You can lean forward and cheat on the concentric portion and come back down on the eccentric. You can also do a few more reps coming up and sitting up straight after you've gassed out. Here we have the drag curl and variations of the drag curl. It's all about the long head, which is giving you a more stretch for that bicep, bringing the arm behind the body. An opposite approach, here's the spider curl, arms out in front, supinated wrists, elbow flexion. That's what it's all about. Enjoy that pump. You're going to have to go light. Call this one the show me the money curl. What you see is what you get with the heads of the bicep. Remember that. This is all about the inner, the short head focus, all about width. You can alternate the arms. You can go unilateral. You can do an iso hold. You got a lot of options here, but it's all about hitting that inner head. Circular curls. This is our combo mill option for both the short and long head. Elbow flexion and external rotation with a supinated grip gives us the choice on whether to put the eccentric or concentric emphasis on the long head or the short head. So you could come up on the concentric for the long head, or you can come up on the short head and vice versa. Last but certainly not least is whenever you're doing a neutral grip curl, unlike those supinated grip curls, you are isolating and focusing on the brachialis, which is a separate muscle behind and under the long head, wedged between the bicep and the tricep. It's all about helping broaden and grow the size of your overall bicep, giving width to your bicep. It has a very much a functional purpose in that neutral grip position, so whenever you're lifting up a beer and drinking. But what's great about it too is you can do alternating iso holds, you can do zones, and you can use the arm blaster doing a crossbody curl just like you see here. You can also pronate the wrist to help hit the brachialis as well. You see me going all the way to the bottom and activating the tricep so that I can then re-engage and get as much of a stretch as possible. Don't ignore the brachialis. It is the foundation to your bicep size. And you see me really getting a squeeze at the top there. And even once you've spent as much as you can concentrically, come up as far as you can, even doing partial reps. It must be Monday somewhere. It's time for chest. Here I'm doing an incline bench, dumbbell bench press. As you can see, I have a bench. If you do not, you can use alternatives like a weighted, I stress, weighted large ice chest or other things like that. Be mindful of stability and your floors so there's no slippage. With this, I'm trying to hit that upper chest to get that nice shield look on those muscles coming off the clavicle. Good to not neglect the upper and just focus on the lower so you don't have droopy boobies. With these presses, you can immediately see whether you're flat bench or incline. You have power options with tempo, going fast or slow in the concentric and eccentric, options for alternating, as well as isometric and even positioning. You can do a close grip press, a wide to close grip press, a twisting bench press. And in this case, you can see me coming up on a wide to close grip press where I'm coming down once I'm close and having a eccentric motion, then a concentric motion back up, and then an eccentric on the width. When performing these with dumbbells, be very mindful of form and angle. Don't flare out the elbows too much, perpendicular to side, too much stress on the delts. Really appreciate and respect the stretch on the chest. If you don't have any weights, a great option is a decline push-up. All you need to do is put your feet up on a bench, a chair, a stair, wherever you can get in a position to push more and rely more on the upper chest. The ankle will be as simple as a street curb or as high as a high step. Let's say you don't have any bench option and you're bored with push-ups. Something you can try is the floor press. This limited range of motion can actually be used to your advantage. It replicates hitting the top half of the bench press. So this lift is especially important for all of y'all, including me, who have issues coming up from the bottom position of the bench press and you freeze about halfway. So all you power lifters who seem to be able to push that weight off your chest with ease but gas out halfway, definitely consider now and later, when you have access to heavier weight, incorporating this movement and doing it. Changing up the motion, as you can see, with iso alternating dynamic here. The underhand fly is another great upper chest body exercise that can be done with light weight. Keep your palms facing up. And it's all about tapping into your pec's natural range of adductive motion by doing a bit of an underhand crossbody fly, which follows the natural muscle fibers. Make sure to stop that contraction at the chest before the shoulder takes over if that's your goal. You can do these seated, and if your upper chest is weaker and you want to concentrate on it, lean forward. If your lower chest is weaker and you want to concentrate on that, lean back. There is an option to go even higher on these where you can fire and activate both your upper chest and your shoulder, your front delt. Remember how I said if you want to just focus on the chest, you stop contraction before going too far up? This is a version that just allows you to hit both the upper chest and your delt. Remember that light weight is key here. You want to go really light. You want to be very much in control. So if we're looking for a body weight option for the lower chest, we're going to do the opposite of the decline push-up with the incline body weight push-up. Just position yourself to have your arms and hands on a bench, a stair, a step, whatever can give you that angle. In this case, you see me using a bench because I can then have my hands in a position to get a bit of an adductive benefit as well. Now still with the lower chest, the classic body weight dip. Just a reminder that if your goal is actually the chest, you need to lean forward and angle yourself to hit the lower chest. Because if your back is straight and you're locking out at the top, you're going to be hitting those triceps more. Really feel the contraction at depth before coming up. You can also opt to not come all the way up and to keep in a middle range to keep tension on and stress on the chest for a greater amount of time. Personally, I like enjoying the pain at the bottom of the lift, enjoy the full range of motion. You can do an iso hold at the top for the triceps, and you can also come down and do a hold at the bottom for the lower chest. If you don't have any dip bars, I recommend using your counters, particularly in the kitchen, your corner kitchen counters, to be able to do whatever you can with what you have. If you're not a fat ass like me and you need a little extra weight, you can create a at-home weight belt for your dips with everything from a rope to a dog leash to attach to your dumbbell. Finishing with an around the world, because it's such a great end of workout with the chest burnout option, please keep that weight light and be mindful of your wrist positioning and not curling and bending your elbow too much. We're moving to the shoulders and the delts, starting with that traditional dumbbell shoulder press. Here we are seated. I actually don't like sitting down, particularly when using lighter weights. Sitting down is great for progressive overload because you can use your feet and your butt, and your back is counteracting forces as you fatigue and go along to help with the lift. But your scapula and your humerus can't move succinctly if you're sitting and your back is pushing into the bench. Using light weight, you can do a nice stability of the core, flexing the glutes, and even narrowing your feet to make it harder and a more demand on balance. Standing is great for lightweight, high burnout, and high reps. Make sure the dumbbells are coming up in a natural arc, which is why dumbbells are actually superior, in my opinion, than the barbell with the shoulder press. Another benefit of standing is that once you reach failure, you can then cheat a bit with a push press until you reach the next level of failure. Now we have the classic, the Arnold press. My personal favorite for delts, especially when warming up. This always feels great in that natural range of motion and natural movement for me. Hits the front and lateral delts with rotation and goes into that traditional press. Great for mobility, so great for warming up with protracted and retracted shoulder blades. You're hitting those interior and lateral delts with this, and your posterior on the back is all about stabilizing for support. Similar to the Arnold press, which utilizes external rotation, is the Scott press, which is basically a shoulder fly that disengages the tricep as you would typically engage on the usual press. This is named after Mr. Olympia Larry Scott, another classic old school lift. Larry Scott had massive arms, particularly triceps, and they made his shoulders look small compared to those big arms. So the legend himself, Joe Gold, came up with this exercise for him. Thumbs angled down at the top, you're going to feel the traps engage a bit at elevation, and once you reach failure, just bring the rotation to the side and go up as far as you can. It's an odd feeling in motion at first, so I even recommend practicing without any weight. The windmill press is one that a lot of us probably haven't tried and done enough of. It's all about core stabilization, and it's all about the obliques. Take a nice wide stance and be sure to push out that hip on the side as you stretch down and fire your oblique. So I'm grouping the traps aesthetically with the shoulders as we're doing these shrugs. And my tip for y'all here, especially if you're using lightweight, is to do tempo ladders. Static holds between dynamic motions. Here you see me doing 4 reps, then holding for 4 seconds, another 4 reps, then holding for 8 seconds, and I can continue on. You can do this like 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 3, 6, 9, whatever works with the weight you have to push out sets. Lateral raise, hitting that middle delt. I personally like thumbs up, nice natural motion, as if you have a beer and you're drinking it and you ain't wasting any of that beer. Your shoulder blade, it sits more forward, so this movement with thumbs up keeps a more natural motion. Here's a variation with 1.5 reps that allows you to focus on zones and allows you to have less momentum, because I don't want you, whether you're at home or at the gym, bro lifting and flexing and swinging those weights around on the raises. Similarly with the front raise, for your anterior delts, no swinging, no cheating. You can do alternate on the static hold isodynamic. You can also sit on an incline bench or in a pop-up chair, similar to the incline curl, to get greater stress and stimulus to the entire range of motion. And all of these lifts for the delts can be progressively overloaded more with technique tweaks, mind-muscle connection, and momentum reduction in tempo than weight. Here's a variation for your anterior and your lateral. It's the L raise. It's a wonderful burnout option. You're going to want to keep that weight light. Even at 15, I can only do like 8 of these in pairs. And then we cannot neglect and forget our anterior delt on the back side. And even though it is sometimes hitting more of the other back muscles when doing movements for it, I still group it in with the shoulders as a delt. Here we have the bent over fly. When you're coming up at the top of the motion, you are engaging the traps and rhombus some, so don't forget, even once you can't do a full range of motion, don't give up. Still come up and do partial reps. You'll still be hitting and engaging that anterior delt. Transitioning from the anterior delt to the back in general, with dumbbells, we're typically looking at variations on rows. In this case, I'm using an incline-bench in a prone position. To do rows, you really see me emphasizing trying to hit the lats by pulling really far back. And here we have a prone row using a bench, whatever you can use as long as you're pronated. Grabbing those dumbbells overhand, I'm flaring out my elbows here to get a wider, more upper back activation, and then I'm keeping my elbows close in and pulling back to get more of a lower back activation on that movement. Here we have the bent over row, very similar. If you're going wider out like that, you're going to be more about hitting the upper back. And then if you're keeping your elbows in, it's more about the lats. Really keep the weight light, really fire with the mind-muscle connection. And if you want, you can iso hold, you can do alternates on the rows, as well as just holding really up there at the top with those shoulders and squeeze back. The classic cross bench pullover. This is a wonderful compound back movement as well as engagement of your core. I highly recommend for y'all to incorporate that, but be mindful of your floor surface so you don't have slippage if you're trying to do a makeshift bench. And we're still going to be hitting the anterior delt with this one. This is the W raise. It's going to be hitting the anterior delt as well as a lot of the other upper back muscles, as well as helping you with your rotator cuff. Here we have the butt kicking commando row. Push up plank position, wide feet for stability, alternating row each side. Keep the core engaged because it's all about stressing the core. And finally, if you really want to fill out those t-shirt sleeves, you can't neglect the triceps. We've already gone over the dips, but here's some specific dumbbell movements you can do. Here we're starting off with an overhead extension plus a bent over kickback. You will likely need to plan for less reps on the kickback owing to your overhead extension lift being stronger. Here we're doing some Skullcrushers, laying flat on the bench. You bring the dumbbells beside your ear. If there's pinch or discomfort, rearrange yourself, move back more. Another option is for you to twist your wrists on the way up for difficulty to have that palm facing outward. As you see on these, as well as on my kickbacks, I really like to have a final twist and emphasis of the wrist to engage the medial head, which only really activates when the elbow is fully extended. Remember the tricep, you got the lateral head closest to the bicep, the long head, which is the meat on the back, the t-shirt filler, and the medial head. So you always need to fully extend and lock to contract that medial head. And it's critical to powerlifters in particular for controlling their press to full lockout and holding that heavy load. One of my favorite variations of a kickback is this neutral to supinated grip kickback, which is all about firing that long head. If you're looking in a mirror, make sure you do that full twist of the wrist and make sure you have nice control, especially if you're starting this out for the first time. Use light weight. And of course, no weight, no problem. Body weight, close grip, push up. Really emphasize the lockout at extension to hit the medial head and all of the tricep. You can even do some iso holds at the top, as well as enjoy coming down at the bottom, reveling in that stretch and pushing back up. Taking out the chest even further and relying more on the tricep is the diamond push-up. I highly recommend when you're doing a home dumbbell workout or at the gym to superset. That's what I do all the time. And I'm supersetting opposing movements, neighboring muscle groups, never doing, or different muscle groups completely. I'm never doing back-to-back with the same muscle group and supersetting. I may, if it's a day I want to concentrate more on chest or biceps, I may incorporate more exercises and lifts for those later in the workout with different supersets, but I'm not going back-to-back with like spider curls or a drag curl and then immediately into a supinated crossbody curl. I'm typically going straight in, starting my workout, like today, with a crossbody supinated curl, incline bench, and then 20 to 30 seconds of core, typically scissor kicks or V holds. And then I repeat second set and so on. As far as number of sets, if you're doing an upper body split and like incorporating a lot of these into one workout day, and you're doing that 3 times a week, 3 working sets should be fine. If you're trying to just focus on one area or 2 muscle groups in the upper body, maybe you're doing 4 working sets, or maybe your goals for 5, but you at least need to do a minimum of 3 working sets. Notice I said working sets. If you need to do a few warm-up reps or a warm-up set, I typically try to do a few reps before going into my first set. So minimum 3 working sets. You can do 4, you can do 5 if you're trying to focus on improving a weakness or a particular troubled spot. It's whatever works for you, but I generally like set 1 of A exercise, set 1 of B exercise, core for 20 to 30 seconds, and that gets me back into set 2 in that 45-second to a minute and a half range. And sometimes depending on the lifts, I'm almost cutting it to get into that endurance range of 45 seconds or less. So much love, y'all. Thank y'all for taking the time and listening to what a little muscular bald gnome has to say about trying to keep them gains. I saw my parents split up right after the wedding.